Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar series, Unveiling the Power of Storytelling. We are here with Hannah. Thank you, Hannah, for coming today.
Thank you for having
me. All right. So today's topic is in relation to the different ways in which we can integrate culture into our classes. So just to make sure the live stream goes well, I'm going to turn off my video and we can get started. Okay. All right. So let's start to think about different ways in which we can integrate culture into our classes. I'm going to go over the objectives for today's webinar. So today we're going to, as part of the objectives, define communicative competence versus intercultural competence. We're going to see how there are the considerations of combining these two sets of competencies. We're also going to use to teach you how to use high quality material to incorporate culture. Okay, in relation to communicative competence and intercultural competence. Of course, most of us may be familiar with the definition by Cannell and Sway that define communicative competence as a synthesis of an underlying system of knowledge and skill needed for communication. Know that communicative competence also includes linguistic competence, social linguistic competence, discourse competence, and strategic competence. So to put it in like more simple words, we can say that developing communicative competence entails using language and understanding how to use it effectively in different communicative situations. And also that is determined by context, and it also implies interpersonal skills. In contrast, we have intercultural competence. And as Bennett defined it, it is the ability to interact effectively and appropriately across different cultures. Intercultural means that it is between or
Laverina's audio caught up for a second, so when she comes back, I'll ask her to keep going with that quote.
So, competence implies to be effective and appropriate. The components of intercultural competence are cognitive in terms of developing self-awareness, which implies our worldview. Affective implies the curiosity that we can develop about other cultures. Behavioral is the skill we need in order to develop empathy, which is the most crucial in trying to understand another person's culture, and it is the ability to see a person or a world from another's worldview. What does it mean? It doesn't mean to be in another person's shoes, because if you're wearing the same glasses, you're still going to see the same thing. It implies looking at a situation using a different glasses, let's say. So that would be a metaphor to understand the development of empathy. All right, so there are so many more things to be said, and there are so many different layers that we can discuss in terms of intercultural competence. And there are so many probably different anecdotes that we can find, especially if we live in a place where we have, and for example, in the United States, also you have a lot of different immigrants, and finding and creating that understanding is crucial to interact effectively.
Okay.
So What does it look to integrate communicative competence and intercultural competence? It implies not only teaching our students to communicate effectively, it also allows us to help our students develop that self-awareness of who we are and what are our expectations, and that will help us to understand and see how other cultures interact, what they do, based on being aware of who we are. So all of us are born in a specific place and we are part of a specific culture. Our family history also is part of who we are. So we come with these preconceived notions and views of the world that are specific and particular from our personal story and our family history, of course. So why do you think background knowledge of another's culture is important for communication?
So there are a number of different things when you're interacting or with someone from another culture, or you're reading about them. It's useful and important to have some background knowledge about the other person from the other culture in case you do something that is maybe impolite in the other culture. So if you know more about them beforehand, you'll be more likely to communicate and get along well if you know some background information about where they come from.
Yes, that's true. An important aspect, for example, between cultures is like personal space. Some
Yeah.
cultures have very specific ways in which they interact. So, for example, the pandemic was easier on some cultures over others, you know, cultures who maintain social distancing or who have a bigger, let's say, personal space were not, let's say, in a way, so much affected by like social distancing, because it's normal for those cultures to be able to stay to have a wider personal space. For example, here in Argentina, people are very much like they hug each other, they kiss each other, even when you first meet a person. It's like very common. So keeping social distancing was really hard, and it's still very hard, you know? So this is like one of those examples that understanding that could help us to interact effectively. So I was talking before in relation to intercultural competence in terms of one of the first steps to develop and to help our students develop intercultural competence is awareness, self-awareness first. And this is called an identity wheel. In this identity wheel, the circle that is colored in the center would be you, right? And you have other different types of circles that will allow you to find that group that you feel identified with. It could be your soccer's, in Argentina, we're a big fans of soccer. Your personal preferences, you name them. Okay, so it is really interesting to use this identity wheel with your students, because you can find many different layers that will help us identify what are those preconceived notions and what are the cultural background we come from, and how that can affect our ability to create that space to connect with other cultures. For example, in my case, I am from Argentina, but my kids were born in the US, so I have a mix of those cultures. I am almost a 40-year-old woman. I am a teacher too. I belong to a small community, well, not small, but like a small area, let's say in Argentina, we are part of a indigenous people that inhabited here. There is our place is very strong in like tradition. We are very let's say in a way stuck to our tradition. That also influences the way we prepare our food. We are very structured, like this goes with this. Like if you have corn, it has to go with Andean potatoes, you know? And when I went to the United States, I realized that you can create your own version of whatever you want. You can combine. That's something that really amazed me. You know, that like there is not just one way to do or to make like a dish. There are many different ways you can create it. And that creative culture, like say openness, really was like something that I was very happy with. Yeah, because you can create your own. It's not like, oh, this is the dish, you know? And I'm sure in your case, Hannah, you probably also have many more things to share about your family history, about the place where you live in,
Yeah.
the school you attended.
Yeah, my identity wheel comes. There's a lot of different things, not just the place that I'm in, but the things that I do that shape the identity wheel. So for example, I'm an American, but I'm also a Michigander. I am a young person in her 20s. I am a woman. I am a friend, and I have activities that I do that shape who I am. I like to knit. I like to garden. And so if I meet a person from another culture, surely not all of our identities will line up. But say I meet someone who I don't understand in every way, but we're both young women who like to garden. So that can be a connection that I make with someone from a completely different country. And we can share the ways that we are different with one another. And that is very important, I think, when you go through life to meet people like that.
Yes, that's totally true. One of the things, for example, that was like I couldn't understand, but I was able to understand from my students from like Saudi Arabia, Turkey. It's like they had Ramadan, and I know it's like now that time, and I didn't understand at the beginning like why they were so tired in my class. And they told me because it's Ramadan, and I was like, but what is it? And they explained to me that it was fasting for them, and they could only eat after the sunset. And so when it's nighttime, that's when they can eat. During daytime, it's like they cannot eat anything. They have to wait. So they say they had to wake up several times during the night in order to eat. And that's why they were so tired.
Yeah, very interesting. A teacher might get angry about, you need to go to bed sooner so you can be awake in class. But once you know the context, you can treat it differently and with more kindness, for sure.
Yes. And I was like, wow, that is so interesting. And because it was not part of my culture, I didn't understand it at the beginning. But then now when I see Ramadan, I know what it means because of my students.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next slide. So when we are, we just discussed this, what does it mean to teach intercultural communication? So we are going to use language, but other communicative tools to execute practices of different groups, not just one group, meaning not just your culture. We're going to learn about other cultures, and that means not just one specific group, but more than one group. And that is important because when we think of interculture, we just think of our own, let's say, perspective. And it's like, well, but we need to create that space so we can like find that middle ground between our culture and another person's culture.
Mhm.
Okay, so what will happen if we help our students develop intercultural competence? It will allow us to understand other cultures' practices with empathy. And that's a very big word for us because it's not just simply knowing about a specific culture, but it's also understanding the culture and understanding how they could be different.
Mhm.
So it's important to develop empathy and also find a way to look at the same situation from a different perspective, wearing different glasses, not just putting yourself in another person's shoes with your same glasses. Changing your glasses will help.
Yeah.
All right, so how our storyscape comes in place here? Well, we are very aware of this much needed, let's say, competence to be developed. We have included the culture and connections sections that features different English speaking cultures, which we are going to look at later. And
Okay.
we're going to show you how it works. So one of the countries that we feature in the cultural connection sections is Canada. So based on our previous knowledge and our schemata, we're going to take a look at things that we know or what we know about Canada. All right. So for that, we're going to play one of the games that we feature in our platform that is called Look At. It's solo.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're right.
And so Blooket is a very popular app that teachers in the United States are using. It was pretty new to me before I discovered it. Now we love it. So we're gonna play it.
Which one do you think we should play?
I think like the one at the bottom was kind of like that one was good. I love the factory.
All right, we'll go for that one.
Yeah, with Blooket you have different types of modes. With this one we select the time that we want to play. Maybe let's say, yeah, that's fine. 2
2
minutes is
minutes.
perfect. Yep.
Okay.
We might go a little faster than that. Maybe, we don't know. Depending
We'll
on
see.
how fast. Yeah, we'll see.
All right, I'll get started.
All right.
Should I show the tutorial or?
Yeah, we could do it. Maybe we can.
All right.
Because our previous webinar was on games. So might as well.
Yeah, so to start my factory, I need to answer this question correctly. The most popular sport in Canada is, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it's ice hockey. Oh, I was wrong. It's softball. So
but it is hockey.
Well, maybe we put it in wrong.
Yes. Yes, definitely not softball.
What animal is very popular in Canada? A popular animal? Okay, good. I answered one correctly. Oh, I still have 1 minute remaining. I should go quickly.
Yes.
Okay, now fill 2 more questions. Continent North America. What is the third?
The second or the third?
Oh,
it's the second. Yes, Canada is the second largest. What significant water bodies are there in Canada? Seas, rivers, lakes, or ponds?
I mean, they probably have many different, both.
Yep, but they do
Okay.
have those.
Oh, I get to pick.
Yes, you can get a look at now.
Okay, I completed the
Oh, a
tutorial with
Canadian
15
sport.
seconds left.
A Canadian sport that has indigenous origins is
Lacrosse.
and what's the percentage of Canada is that is inhabited?
80%. So maybe 2 minutes was too quick, but
Yes.
I think we went through most of the questions.
Yep, we have. We're gonna see. So let's see how much. Oh, you got 71%. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're good.
So I made some mistakes. I don't know everything about Canada, it turns out.
Well, that's good because we are going to learn about Canada, and this is just to see how much we know about it, you know?
Yeah.
And probably there are many more things to be learned about Canada or any other country. Let's go now to the platform.
Okay.
And we're going to show you the fun facts about Canada. So here is it's unit 2. The cultural connection sections includes this infographic. We see the map. We'll see before. Well, we'll show you later. Now we see the flag. We can see the flag. We are going to look at the geography right here. So Canada happens to be the second largest country. Wow. It covers a lot of land. But
I imagine the first largest country is Russia, I think. That makes me curious.
Probably, definitely.
Yes, it is Russia. Okay.
So it's the second largest country. It also has the longest street in the world. That is in Toronto. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea about.
Fun fact.
De parla. Je ne sais pas.
Very good.
All right. Yeah. Oh, thanks. It's also the world's longest coastline. So than all other countries combined. Remember, we asked the question of the water bodies. So I didn't know that either. I thought they had like rivers.
Yeah, but there are a lot of lakes, and there's also the Great Lakes on the southern border too.
Yeah. Also, they have, well, 80% of the country is not inhabited. That's wow. I had.
Yeah. Most of the people who live in Canada are in Toronto, which is around here, or on this coast, but they're all mostly in the southern half, and on the east or west coast. There's not very many people who live in the north at all, really.
Wow. That's wow. I thought, and I didn't know that also they had like so many polar bears. Like I thought they had like, like polar bears, penguins, other animals, but they had a big population of polar bears.
Well, it might be, those two facts may be related.
Definitely.
If all the polar bears are up here, I don't think anyone wants to live there.
Right? Yeah. And in the sports and games section, I honestly didn't know. I thought it was invented by an American.
Yeah, I didn't either. until I made
That's
this fun fact.
awesome. And about ice hockey, well, I kind of figured what, like ice hockey, like it would be a sport they play, but then we'll show what an ice hockey game look like. Because I
Yeah.
was also surprised to see that.
Yeah, that is part of our panorama section. So when you go through our culture and connection section in any tab in any unit in our Storyscape, you'll see that, there's overlap. You'll see a particular fact or point, a feature in the target culture. And, we'll talk about it again. It's a part of the daily life of the people who live in that culture.
Yeah, we'll show it after we finish with this infographic, because I was so really surprised about that. And the last fun fact about Canada is that lacrosse has indigenous origins, and it's the oldest national sport in Canada. I really didn't know about the indigenous origins. What's
Yeah.
the name of the tribe?
So that would be the Iroquois people. And I was telling Lorena beforehand that there is another name that they have for themselves that I can't pronounce, but you can certainly look it up and read their history. But the name that we call them by, the Iroquois, was originally coined by the French settlers who, interacted with them. And also, another thing about this name is that it is French, but, as Americans, we don't pronounce it in the French way. We've created our own thing for it. So it's just a little, you can, if you find a fact like this in any of our pages, you can kind of delve into it further with your students. Really think about, who is this Canadian American who invented basketball? Where did he come from? What did he do? You can investigate these sorts of things with your students once you have, you get into our culture and connection section.
One of the things that I love about this is like the fun facts infographic, like you said, is a springboard. Many different questions that you have that are like, wow. And then it makes you and definitely your students like feel like learning more about it. And this is what I was discussing at the beginning in relation to the curiosity aspect of intercultural competence. That is like that type of curiosity you have to learn about other cultures. And when we discussed this with Hannah, I was thinking about like, well, here in my area, there is also like this Aboriginal tribe that lived before, and we had like, we're part of like the Inca Empire. And before that, there was another tribe that were like the Omawagas that have that like kind of like similar name to the name of the city. So, and I'm sure in any other places, because we are all in this case part of like colonized areas, there were like different tribes. So finding out about them and finding out about, in this case, Canada's tribes would be another way to connect our, like, let's say, colonized history.
Yeah, you can draw parallels between what happened where you live, your history, and what happened in the history of Canada, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to the panorama to take a look at the ice hockey game, which was like, I was imagining like a like a basketball court. I was like, is this a hockey game? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Like you have the teams there, you have the split like ice, like designated areas. Everything is like super clean. That was so, I was like, wow. I wouldn't have imagined. It's like a, you know, like for like not exactly the same, but like, oh, you want to play soccer, go there. Oh, you want to play hockey game? This is where we play.
Yeah, so I can imagine for students who live in warmer places, this will be a really interesting scene to explore and talk about in your
Right.
class.
Yeah, we don't have those here. So we don't have so many snow to make a, you know, like a ice hockey place. And it's like they even have a scoreboard there. I was like,
yes,
wow.
over here. There's a
Yep,
scoreboard
right there.
and I can imagine just, you know, being someone from Michigan, who shares a border with Canada. This is a familiar scene to me, but my first thought looking over here is this is a great place to go sledding, and then you can slide down, and then you can go watch your hockey game that your brother's playing in. So yeah, this will be interesting, and this particular unit is about sports and activities. So students will have the vocabulary they need to discuss and compare. You know, maybe they don't play ice hockey, but what other sports do they play? And where do they play it when, you know, they don't have all the equipment they need? For example, you know, this isn't always in place. The ice will melt at some point, and then, you know, what will they do to, you know, makeshift the game that they want to play?
Yes, that resonates so much with the activities that also we propose with different types of picture. That is like, I see, I wonder.
Mm-hmm.
They follow the I see, I wonder, and then you ask your questions. That's super nice, you see?
Yeah, this will give them, you know.
Excellent. So another activity to develop your students' critical thinking skills and, you know, to boost their motivation and interest. So that is great. And we also have the map of Canada that will show us different areas that I had no idea about. Right. The lakes, different types of lakes they have.
Yes. So, you know, on the fun facts page, it has that thing about, you know, how many lakes there are. And you wouldn't know it unless you know, students will have to come back to this page and really look at it and think about, oh yeah, look at all of those, you know, all the way across.
And you have to read over the map. It's not just like, oh, it's there. You just have to go over it and show understanding in order to answer the questions and specific questions. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, and so there's comprehension questions with, you know, many of these items in the culture and connection section, just to make sure that, you know, your students have the vocabulary they need to discuss, you know, what they see on the map, and can understand how to read it as well, with a little bit of geography with your English lesson.
Yes, that's super interesting because that's like cross-curricular content too.
Okay, now what?
Now we're going to go to our next section on the slides.
Okay.
Okay, so we learned so many different aspects about Canada. We went over the culture and connection components and features that we have on our Storyscape. And I'm also going to share with you the additional resources that we have in our Storyscape. And remember how we were discussing and talking about how it is important to create that space to find those points of connection between our cultures and another person's or another speaker's culture. So in order to do that, we're going to show you a way, or one way you can do it with your students. I'm going to share with you, Hannah, on the chat board, the link to our Jamboard, so we can find different ways and look visually to visually connect the content and all the cultural information we'll learn about Canada and how our personal culture or personal history can connect our students' personal history also can connect, and what points in common we'll be able to find with the other culture, and what are things that we'll see were like maybe a little bit different. Finding those similarities and differences will help us visualize where we can connect. Okay, so I'm sharing this on the chat, on the Zoom chat. Can you see it?
No.
Not yet. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, let's see. I'm going to try to send it again. There you go.
You can, oh, good.
So what you will see here, as I said before, is our graphic organizer that we include in our additional resources section. And it will allow us to find different similarities and connect with our students. So I'm going to also join the Jamboard, and we can write what are the different things that we were able to find that are different or similar in relation to Canada. So first, what we are going to do
Have you come back yet? Are you back?
I think I'm back.
Okay. Real quick before you keep going, I can only look at the Jamboard. I can't add anything to it. So
Okay. I will add the
settings.
Yeah. So we're going to write at the top of the Jamboard. We're going to add the name, like of your country's name. And you can also add, in this case, Canada's name. Help us identify the different countries. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, this is like the logistics. The logistics section. Okay, all right, yep. Okay. Now we should be able to edit. Okay, here's the other link. I'm gonna type in.
I can do it now.
Yay. So I'm gonna write Canada in blue.
Oh, okay.
You can write USA if you want.
Yeah, so for myself in the USA, what's different and what's similar? For example, let me type.
I'm going to write Canada on mine and Argentina. So here we have soccer is our popular sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they have ice hockey. We don't have any ice in this area, and only hail snow whenever, but very occasionally. So maybe I would say somewhat cold. Yeah, it's definitely not um, a very cold area where you would get snow, but it's cold enough to get hail snow, you know, every many months. They have ice hockey. We do have indigenous tribes here too. Okay. What other points in common can we find? It's true. This is something really interesting that I learned about the tribe, the Iroquois, is that there were also in the northern part of the United States.
Yeah.
So that is like a really interesting point, because you can somewhat relate in a way, you know. Well, what I could say about it too is that we have both love sports.
Yeah. Even if they're not the same one.
Exactly. And we are both colonized areas too. So, and you can go on and on about it and add more, learn more, like Hannah said, about the countries, and continue, you know, like get more ideas, expand this activity, add projects if you want to, you know. There are different ways in which you can expand, and the graphic organizer as a supplemental material can be used you know, in many different ways. In this case, we used it to talk about Argentina and Canada, USA and Canada. And the most important thing to remember is that by visualizing this, we kind of like visually also helped our students to develop this idea of creating that space where we can both meet, you know, both cultures can meet. So that is something to keep in mind, and to always like think with your students and classes, in having the right tools and the right resources will also help develop empathy, develop curiosity for learning, because you can even like split your students in different groups and give them specific information to find, you know. We it's I think a great learning tool for our students, and definitely will help them. We go into other deeper details because we have like the culture of India, the culture of the United States, of England, and many other countries that we probably really like have heard about, but we really didn't have a chance to dive more into their culture. So that's what we want to provide your students and your classes with this experience.
Yeah.
So Great. We'll go back to our PowerPoint and we'll be good to go. These are the additional resources we used to develop intercultural competence, and we showed you what it looks like and what it would be like. We have just like this, the cultural connection section is just one section. We have many more sections and many more resources that we're going to share coming up in our webinars. So we hope you enjoyed our webinar, and thank you so much for being part of our webinar. Also, we also have our special gift for teachers. So we invite you to send us an email at efl@ourstoryscape.com, because we can create your teacher account and you will get a complimentary access for 1 year for teachers. So we hope you can take advantage of all the different resources we have. You can project all of these materials like we have with Hannah, and also you can print any pages from the platform. So we invite you to email us and we'll be more than happy to help you get started.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your presentation today. I think it's really wonderful and a great way to highlight the cultural connection section that we have available for use in our Storyscape level 1. Thank you.
Yes, and we'll have more news coming up in relation to the next title level. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and we'll talk to you soon. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.